Thank you. This is opening remarks by the chairman of the Ad-hoc committee on the state of refineries in the country during the active section with stakeholders held on Thursday, 31st March 2022 at the conference room 019 House of Representatives building, National Assembly Complex, Abuja. My colleagues, distinguished and right honorable members of the committee, the Honorable Minister of State, ably represented here, the Managing Director of NNPC, also ably represented here, executive officers and heads of missions and organizations, the Director General of, who is my friend, my colleague, when we were in Lagos State Government, when I can vouch for him that he has been doing very good job, because somebody I know very well, and I know the way we used to argue when it comes to budget. So you are welcome. The heads of refineries, other invited key stakeholders, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. I have the pleasure to welcome you all to this very important meeting of national importance. I therefore thank you very sincerely for finding time out of your busy schedules to attend this meeting. You may recall that in January 2022, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, constituted this committee to determine the state of refineries in the country and what is needed to bring them back to maximum refining capacity. The committee was mandated to work with Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, and other relevant stakeholders to determine the true state of our refineries, ascertain the actual cost of rehabilitating the refineries over the years, and articulate what is needed to be done for the refineries to function at maximum refining capacity. It must be noted that this select committee is made up of well-respected, experienced, and ranking members of the House of Representatives, and I am personally grateful to the Speaker for finding me worthy to chair the committee. The committee, therefore, resolved to work closely with NNPC and other key government functionaries and obtain the needed information in order to carry out the assignment. Relying on relevant laws and pursuant to the provisions of sections 62, 88, 89 of the Constitution of Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, the committee on 24th February 2020 requested the GMD of the NNPC for a status report on the nation's refineries. We specifically requested the GMD to provide the following: appraisal of the current state of refineries in the country, Port Harcourt, Refining Company, Warri Refining and Petrochemical Company Limited from year 2012 to date. 2. Copies of annual budgets on rehabilitation by the refineries: Port Harcourt Refining Company, Warri Refining and Petrochemical Company Limited, and Kaduna Refining and Petrochemical Company Limited from 2012 to date. List of approvals, fund releases for rehabilitation of refineries from year 2012 to date. List of all contracts awarded for rehabilitation of refineries and award letters issued to service providers and contractors from year 2012 to date. Annual cost of projects, contracts, and review, if any, stated in Naira. Work completion certificates issued on rehabilitation projects carried out on refineries from year 2012 to date. Evidence of payments made for all such contracts awarded from year 2012 to date. List of service providers and contractors that handled the rehabilitation of refineries from year 2012 to date. Any other relevant information to assist the committee in the course of this assignment. We appreciate the response of NNPC to the request of the committee and acknowledge receipt of their submissions and information so far provided. I must, however, point out, as my colleagues may also agree with me, that the submission made by NNPC did not adequately provide answers to the request made to them by the letter. In our second letter to the GMD, dated 17 March 2022, inviting him to this interactive section, we again specifically requested for the following document. 1. Copies of approved budget documents on rehabilitation by the refineries: Port Harcourt Refining Company, Warri Refining and Petrochemical Company Limited, and Kaduna Refining and Petrochemical Limited from year 2012 to date. Evidence of approvals for rehabilitation of refineries from year 2012 to date. Evidence of fund releases for rehabilitation of refineries from year 2012 to date. Copies of all contracts awarded refineries from year 2012 to date. Evidence of fund releases for rehabilitation of refineries from year 2012 to date. Copies of all contracts awarded for rehabilitation of refineries and award letters issued to service providers and contractors from year 2012 to date. Copies of work completion certificates issued on rehabilitation projects carried out on refineries from year 2012 to date. Evidence of payments made for all such contracts awarded from year 2012 to date. What is needed to bring the refineries back to maximum refining capacity? 8. Any other relevant information to assist the committee in the course of this assignment. The committee also extended invitation to other relevant key government stakeholders to the interactive section, including the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, the Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Accountant General of the Federation, Auditor General of the Federation, Director General, Budget Office of the Federation, the Governor, Central Bank of Nigeria, the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Authority, the Port Harcourt Refinery Company Limited, the Kaduna Refinery and Petrochemical Company Limited, the Warri Refinery and Petrochemical Company Limited, the National Bureau of Statistics, and the Nigerian Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. We equally requested related and relevant documents and information from this invited organization on the state of the refineries. The interactive section was rescheduled to hold on 31st March 2022 on the request of NNPC and other stakeholders who could not attend due to pre-scheduled assignments. It is our hope that you have all here today prepared for this very important interface with the committee. We are all aware the pain and we are all aware the pain and not happy with the current state of affairs regarding our oil sector of our economy. It is agreed by all Nigerians that oil subsidy is no longer sustainable, and we must find a way to develop our refining capacity in order to satisfy daily local consumption needs. The current scarcity of PMS is scary, and as a major stakeholders and leaders holding positions of authority, destiny beholds on us to take responsibility and do the needful in the interest of our nation and our people. I therefore urge all to open up, be sincere to ourselves and to the nation. Let us state the problems besetting our refineries and provide solutions for a sustainable outcome and future. To put it simply and frontally, why are the refineries not working? What can we do to make them work? I wish you very fruitful deliberations, and thank you, and God bless you all.
In our purview, but as you would recall, in the refineries repair and rehabilitation, because that has traditionally been dealt with by the NNPC itself, at least since the time that we've been here. However, 2 years ago, when NNPC launched its current program of rehabilitating the refineries, based on a presidential approval, and which is reflected in the fiscal framework that the National Assembly approves annually. In 2020, so there was an approval for them to receive a total of $700 million as contribution from the fiscal authorities towards the program of refinery rehabilitation. In 2020, they got 81.2 billion naira, representing $213 million. In 2021, they got 100 billion naira, representing $243 million. And in the fiscal framework for 2022, which was approved by the National Assembly, there's 109.3 billion naira, allowed. These are allowed as deductions. They are, the federally funded projects that NMPC is handling for government. So these are allowable deductions from revenues by NMPC before they remit to the Federation account. So they are not provided as expenditures in the budget. For 2022, they have not received anything, and currently the fiscal framework is under consideration or revision by the National Assembly. And as part of that, this 109.3 billion naira previously allowed for them is probably going to be reduced, because the National Assembly has been requested by the President to revisit the framework to make adequate provision for the reinstatement of subsidies on petrol, which in the previously approved fiscal framework, the amount allowed to NMPC as deductions for petrol subsidy this year was 443 billion naira. The revised figure now is 4 trillion naira. So that's what, so as part of that consideration, as the allowed deduction for subsidy is increasing, part of the solution is to see where to cut. And so there is indication that the amount allowed to them for refinery repairs will be reduced. Thank you.
Because this is like an informal presentation. We want you to make your submission formal by forwarding it to us in writing.
A written submission, even though I could not attend personally, but we made a written submission to this committee which contains the information that I've shared with you. But if you want us to resend it, we will. Otherwise, the Secretariat has received this information in writing from us.
Taken from the account of the NNPC, and based on the record of the account of NNPC with CBN, we deduce the information there, and what we have is what NNPC used. That's after sales, what they have taken to do rehabilitation of the refinery. If you follow the representation, Mr. Chairman, sir, you will find that we made clearly the figures taken in 2020 by NNPC, 2021, and then 2022. So, Mr. Chairman, sir, if you have the copy of the representation with you, you can see in 2022 so far what has been taken, that's in January by NNPC after their sales, is 9.110 billion naira for the rehabilitation of the refinery. So, Mr. Chairman, sir, that's the information we have for the committee as far as the rehabilitation of the refinery.
Refineries in the country, we have given the percentage utilization from 2012 to date, and all the information we have concerning the current rehabilitation of NNPC refineries. Thank you, sir.
MBS mandate is that of producing statistics. I will do that by collecting information from relevant agencies. And the petroleum sector is one of those sectors that are very key, particularly when it comes to the area of computing the GDP. And as such, so I was saying the petroleum sector is one of those key sectors that we depend on in terms of getting information for the computation of the gross domestic product. And so on the issue of the state of the refineries, indeed, MBS does not have any involvement in that, but our concern always is getting the figure that will help us to ensure that there is growth in the nation's economy. And so far so good from 2012 to 2020, the current to 2021, specifically the information that we collect from the refineries and NNPC is the quantity of crude petroleum received by the refineries, the ones processed, and indeed the capacity utilization of the refineries. And so from 2012 to date, we've been recording completely a declining trend, so that as at 2021, the capacity utilization was 0. So that is the best that where MBS is involved to collect information, and they use those information to compute relevant statistics. Thank you, Chair. Any formal written submission, but if the committee desires that we do that, we'll do it based on the information available to us, Chair. Thank you.
Even if you are not in a position to answer them adequately, you will probably have to liaise with your other agencies, so we'll get response from you as soon as possible. So I will start from
I'm from Center of Excellence. I represent the very good people of Surulere Federal Constituency. My name is Shoyinka Olatunji. You're all welcome, our guest. My questions are not far to fetch. I'll start by asking that we are of the opinion that this term schedule maintenance are not complied with the way it should have been. So what are the disciplinary actions taken by the government in respect of the actions, to the staff, in respect of the action not taken at when necessary, as or when due or properly? The question goes this way: why did the series of expensive rehabilitation projects, which were satisfied and completed, not able to keep the refinery in a good and operative state up to the 90% capacity utilization after all exercises? Have any technical audits by external or internal experts to determine or confirm whether these expensive rehabilitation projects were actually executed satisfactorily as contracted? I think I'll
part of the contracting process in NNPC. So, sir, we are unable to answer that because we don't have information on that.
They are able to answer it.
Presentation from native.
So you are not in a position to make any presentation.
I've made a presentation. We've given a presentation already, but it just highlights yes to the Secretariat. A written submission has been made to the Secretariat that shows, based on our own perspective, each of the refineries, what has been sent to them in terms of their, based on their refining capacity, what they've been given to them by, what has been come to them and what has been utilized by the refineries. And then information on what has been spent on subsidy in terms of payments, as based in our reports. This has been submitted to the Secretariat from our own end, sir.
The people to address us at this side of the divide, I'm afraid they are not here. Because for this investigative panel, we are to gather information and compare notes. From the way I'm looking at the respective agencies here, they are more of either regulatory agency, data gathering agency, or that of the DG office, which is to conduct assessment or recommend for funding on projects. Mr. Chairman, you may wish to find out why those that are running the plants, that are key factors on this investigative hearing, and that of NNPC, why they are not here. And you may wish to even exercise your powers or make further recommendation to the House. We have no any man-hour to waste. Just as we should not be ready to waste the man-hours of the people who are leaving their office to come and join us as well here, if we are not going to get any tangible results. Being that as it may, Mr. Chairman, permit me to provoke few sentiments before the DG budgets. Based on what you have explained to us here, and because I like to speak to documents, sir. As a Nigerian, as a critical stakeholder, just as you are, and I, and all of us in this hall, do we have, sir, in your office, a system for monitoring and evaluation in terms of releases or expenditure made by government in respect of, I want to be specific, the turnaround maintenance, the refurbishment, as the case may be, they normally call it, or the repairs on the refinery. So at least when you release this money, there are supposed to be feedback, supposed to be monitored, and then the index, that is the performance and their indicators over the years. Because my fear is that, sir, the absence of this definitely brought us to the knees where we are today. Because we've just been spending money. That's number one, sir. The monies released so far, or that they have rendered, it has been on investment in terms of running the plants. And they are supposed to be return on investment. Have they, at any time, sir, declared, to your knowledge, that they have made so much profits over a period of 2, 3, 4, 5 years up to today? Because all that we have been hearing on the news, because that's why we requested that the Minister for Finance should be here. That's why we requested that the CBN governor should be here. That's why we requested that the Minister for Petroleum should be here, so that there can be a kind of synergy and then we'll give answers to our questions. If we've been spending money to repair a particular car for almost 20 years and that car cannot be on the road, which is akin to the state of our refineries today. Then secondly, sir, this may not be poked directly at you, but you are aware that every blessed day we have 445,000 barrels of crude allocated for local refining, and none of the refineries, the 4, none is working. we are aware that financial report supposed to come to your table, sir, about what they are doing with the 445. You may not be able to tell us what they do with it, but has there been at any time report came to you what they have been doing with this 445,000 barrels every blessed day is earmarked for local utilization? That's for refining. Then, sir, again, do you agree with me, sir, that the money we have spent on either turnaround, refurbishment, repair, as the case may be, because they normally give so many nomenclatures, by your evaluation, sir, and reports we are receiving globally on transfers and buyovers of refineries? I'm convinced today as a Nigerian to tell you, sir, that we have spent almost 150% of what we're supposed to spend to build a new refinery, just one that will be functional. Because Yoruba will say, I'd rather have one rather than have 1,000 that is not useful. Sir, if you are not able to answer us this today, we want to please appease your office to find out and let them go into research. Recently, there are so many buyovers of refineries all over the world. We have just spent another 1.5 billion, or spending 1.5 billion for rehabilitation of refineries, whereas the FPSO, even refinery, that's for floating production, storage, and offloading refinery, costs far more less than what we are spending every year to put our refineries back up. So I'm putting this across to you, sir, so that by the time next time we have another engagement, we want to be well enlightened. We want to be well informed. Because if you are not informed, we are deformed, just as the entire Nigerians. Sir, from 1 barrel of crude, I want to poke another sentiment. The value chain attached to it is more than $2,000. We are now struggling because of 100 or celebrating $100 per barrel, because we are not doing anything with the crude other than to export. And it's because of the state of our refineries. I'm saying this, sir, before you because you are a critical stakeholder and we know what you are doing to pull the economy together. And I know that you may have been informed about this. Let's come together and let's discuss this. Let's argue. Let's get the way forward. If I have my ways today, and I'm saying it publicly, I'd rather tell the government not to spend 1 kobo on any of the refineries. They can even sell them as scrap. And I'll give my reasons, sir. As at the time the petrochemical LMA was bought over by Dorama, till today that petrochemical, that plant is still functioning and still one of the best until probably when Dangote will come on stream. Sir, that was the same time the foreign refineries were at 18% local utilization capacity. They are all dead now. But the one bought by Indorama is still functioning. It is still in this country, sir. Then lastly, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to take, lastly, Mr. Chairman, sir. Instead of us subjecting this to argumentative debate, the critical stakeholders, those who are the core operators, that is, those who are running the refineries, they need to appear before this committee. They should come and talk to us. Even if it's not going to be in camera, it's not going to be with the press. We should take something back home, back to that chambers to deliberate and talk about. Our refineries are not working, and they are running in deficit. In fact, the entire 4 refineries are one of the greatest liabilities we have in this country. And I don't want to mince words about this. Equally, our colleagues, too, in the industry, they are not helping matters. Because any time government will say they want to either sell the refineries or do something, the next thing you hear is they want to go on strike. We should close our eyes one day and damn the consequences instead of subjecting the entire Nigerians to this harrowing experience that we are witnessing every day. Mr. Chairman, it costs a far less amount of money to go to Indonesia, to go to Singapore, within 3 years, they will give us brand new refineries that will be floating on the high sea. Even if we get all these our refineries working today, so please note it, I'm stating this publicly, there is no pipeline network to convey the refined petroleum products. Because over the period of years that we have been battling with how to put the refineries back online, we have abandoned the pipelines that will convey the products. So if these refineries, if they start cracking today, there is nothing to except they want to put inside truck again, articulated trucks, to endanger our lives. The pipelines are not there working. So it requires a holistic approach. It's not just for us to say we are querying anybody, we want to challenge anybody. No. It is something that we must put all our cards on the table and look for solutions to it. That's my submission, Mr. Chairman, sir. Thank you very much.
I will endeavor to answer the questions put to me directly. First was whether my office monitors the expenditures on the refinery repairs. As I stated earlier on, there is no appropriation, there's no line in the budget for refinery repairs. What is happening in the fiscal framework, NNPC has been allowed to deduct monies upfront from the revenues before remittance towards the program of refinery repairs, and that monitoring what is that is not under the purview of my agency. We have a responsibility to monitor expenditures under the Appropriation Act. Okay, that's the responsibility that the Fiscal Responsibility Act assigns to us. So I think that and it will be in the best position to provide the information that you ask. And within the PC itself, I believe they have an M&E function. As for the 445,000 barrels a day location of crude for local refining, first, I don't think it's a secret that those refineries haven't produced in the last years. So essentially what has happened is that those the barrels for domestic refining are allocated to NNPC is what they use to swap for refined products under different arrangements that they enter into. The current one being what they call DSDP, which are direct sale, direct purchase, or whatever from refineries abroad. They give them the crude, and they get refined products in exchange. So, and this is a policy. This is a policy matter. So, the government, and that includes the National Assembly, have provided the policy framework on which NNPC currently operates, which includes the fact that we have, we subsidize petrol, and so that's the reason why they are compelled to take that and find a way of getting, petrol available to Nigerians. Otherwise, that will not be necessary, and what will simply happen is that the crude will be sold, and the money will go into the federation account, and private entrepreneurs will take the responsibility. But NNPCs they have been charged with the responsibility of ensuring that there is no shortage of refined products in the pump stations, and nobody nobody will import petrol today when they cannot recover the cost of the product from the regulated selling price, and so NMPC is stuck with that responsibility. As for comparisons about what the refinery rehabilitation or repair is costing vis-a-vis refineries, that's not something we have done any analysis on, because it's not again not a matter that is within our purview. Currently, okay, what happens in many countries is no government agency can embark on any major capital project without submitting a cost-benefit analysis to the budget office. There is no such regulatory requirement or by law in Nigeria, and so agencies basically determine what projects they want to implement without that mandatory requirement of a cost-benefit analysis. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since you are aware of this swap arrangement, do you have any idea of how many liters per day we get in returns for these 445,000 barrels that is involved in this swapping? Do you have any idea of how many liters per day we get? Because I'm asking because of the volume or the amount of subsidy that we pay on refined products. Because if we have 445,000 barrels a day for refining or for swapping arrangement, I just want to know, you have any idea of how many liters this can give us per day?
It depends on what the product mix. For instance, on a standard basis, okay, there is a mix of products that you get for every crude, but then LPC can decide what they want, whether it is all petrol they want or whatever, and then they agree the value. But what's important to note is that if, for instance, crude oil is selling at $100 per barrel, and we're swapping crude for refined products, it's tantamount to selling that your own crude at $100 and buying back that your same crude at maybe about $120. So you can't get the whatever, because when you give crude, there are costs. There's the refiner's cost, there's the refiner's margin, and all of that. So you can't get back as much as you would if you find it yourself.
Please, sir, because I don't know when I may have this type of opportunity again.
Through me.
What you said that you are...
I said through me.
Okay. What you said you are yet to do the cost analysis. I'm sure, I don't know if you are part of the Federal Executive Council. If not, sir, that cost analysis is very, very important at this stage for us, sir. It's very important. We know your job. We know how difficult it is. But please, a memo can do.
I didn't understand that.
A memo can do, sir. It's either we allow private investors to come and basically deal with our refining of products here in this country and stop wasting our money, or Nigeria now wants to own its own refinery, which will be a brand new one. All these ones we are spending money on, sir, they are obsolete. All this equipment, in fact, many of the people that started, they are dead. They will just be fabricating new parts to put all these machines back online. We don't need them again, sir. Do the cost analysis, I beg of you, sir, and submit it as a memo to the FEC. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Almost all the rehabilitations, maintenance in all our refineries, money spent, work has been completed, but there's no one single liter from the reports that they have given us.
However, the meat here is that we don't want subsidy. And if we don't want subsidy for Nigerians anymore, it means those refineries must be working. They must work. We must find a way, one way or the other, to make them work so that we can refine our crude oil locally. Right now, we are jumping from 443 billion in order to accommodate subsidy to 4 trillion. It's a shame. It's really a shame. So I want to implore everybody, let us work together as Nigerians, that we owe this nation, we owe our people that thing, so that we can eliminate completely the issue of subsidy. This 4 trillion can be channeled to developmental projects if our refineries are working. So on that note, I want to say that NNPC and the operators of these refineries, this is the last opportunity you will have. I'm directing you that you should, by next invitation, show up. Otherwise, we will take parliamentary action on NNPC and all the operators of the refineries, because we cannot continue. You expect National Assembly now to sit down and approve 4 trillion just for subsidy, money that should be used for something else. You are not going to suppress some heads and subways just to accommodate subsidy. We cannot continue. We cannot. We have to find a solution to this problem. It is a problem, yes, I agree, but we must find a way out. And the way out is for us to join hands together and make sure that those refineries are working. Thank you very much. Can somebody move for the adjournment?